Do you ever wish someone would draw you a map and give you the directions to the career of your dreams? If so, consider this podcast your GPS to a career where you feel strong, fulfilled, and passionate about your work, day in and day out. On this show, I am sharing the tools to help you advocate for your strengths, discover your passions, and learn from folks who transformed their careers for the better. My name is Joyel Crawford, your fairy god mentor, and with my 18 years of experience in HR at a Fortune 50 company and 20 years of coaching and mentoring top leaders, I am thrilled to be your guide on this career journey. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to Career View Mirror. I am your host, Joyel Crawford, and this is where we take a look back to move your career forward. Today's guest is someone whose journey will resonate with anyone trying to navigate the complexities of their career, caregiving, and their calling. Elizabeth Miller is the founder of Happy Healthy Caregiver, a certified caregiving consultant, podcast host, just like me, and former corporate professional who's made the bold leap into full-time entrepreneurship in 2023. Her story is one of adaptability, intention, compassion, and today we're going to explore how she built a career that supports not only just her goals, but also her family and her community. Welcome to the show, Elizabeth.
Joyel. I'm so glad to be here.
I am excited for you to be here as well because there are just so many things that intertwine with what's going on right now, right?
Mhm.
So I consider all of us career caregivers. You know, we're taking care of ourselves, we're taking care of others, and some are even caregivers as a career. And
Exactly.
with the whole timing of May being Mental Health Awareness Month, there is such a thing as caregiver burnout. And I just wanted to just tap into how you got involved with the career of caregiving. Like, how
Yeah.
did that all start?
Well, it got started with a personal story. I've always been exposed to caregiving my whole life. I've got an older brother that was born with a developmental disability and is on the autism spectrum. So certainly, had some role in that from a support perspective while my parents were still living. But I was juggling career and I was juggling caregiving for my mom after my dad passed away, and my husband was simultaneously caring for his mom, raising middle school age kids, and we were what they call squeezed in the sandwich generation, and felt like, why is this so hard? And how am I able to keep my head above water? And so really it was a personal caregiving story that then kind of led me into this entrepreneurial, starting Happy Healthy Caregiver, which is just celebrated its 10th year.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
Happy purpose-versary, I like to say.
Oh, amazing. I love that.
So that is a great backstory to all of this. But didn't I read somewhere in your bio that you were in corporate for a minute?
Oh, for a long time. I mean, I spent my corporate career, in IT, and had some fabulous jobs, and I've had to kind of pivot throughout the years, even before I became a family caregiver for my mom. I've had to pivot over the years as a mom myself. So, first pivot was I was working for Turner Broadcasting, and I had a great international job that was going to visit different cities, spending week-long, trips there for different implementations, and realizing as a mom that I wasn't able to kind of come back and do all of the things I needed to do, like I could when I was, we were dual income, no kids.
Right.
So I first kind of went for a domestic position there. And then after I had my second kid, I felt like I had wanted to stay home and be, have that experience, but yet we still needed the income. So I worked with a fellow coworker at Turner Broadcasting back when it was not very cool to do it, but we wrote up a proposal to share a job. So she was a project
Nice.
manager and I was a business analyst. We had the same clients, and so we kind of overlapped on Wednesday, and we pitched this to our company, and they went for it. So,
Wow.
had always had this intention of kind of, didn't want to sacrifice, the role that I wanted with my family. But at the same time, I knew I needed to be, I wanted to be a career person too. I'm not really, I've always felt like I needed something on the side, right?
Yes.
So after I did that for a while, did some part-time work, and that worked for a while. Actually, that was when my first one was born, just that. And then when the second one was born, then I resigned from my first corporate job to stay home. But I still had a direct sales business that I had built up. I was a scrapbooking consultant. So I was doing, I asked my husband, like, what do I need in order to stay at home during the day? And he said, you need to bring in $1,000 a month. And so that was kind of my goal
Stretch
then.
goal.
That was my goal. So I said, I can do that. I had built up my business and had signed up some other people to sell
Mhm.
scrapbooking supplies. We had earned some amazing trips. So that worked for a while, and then became a substitute teacher.
Wow.
And thought that I wanted to go back to school to do that, and then eventually went back to work in corporate America part-time with my IT job, and then full-time when my husband lost his job, and did that up until I did the entrepreneurial leap in 2023.
And with balancing the full-time, like, breadwinner, how did that feel as you were a caregiver, not only, to your family, but, like, how did that work? How
Yeah.
well, or, like, what did that look like?
I mean, some of it was some of the things we just do because we have to do
Mhm.
them, right? So my husband had lost his job. I went back part-time. And while he was looking for a job, it just made sense. And on the flip side, my corporate job was excited to kind of get me to go back. I did have a 6-year hiatus between my first corporate job and when I kind of re-entered the IT workforce, when I was doing the substitute teaching and the direct sales. And that was hard to kind of go back. During that time, when I went back, people started bringing their laptops to meetings. They were using instant messenger. They were, the tools had changed a little
Yeah.
bit, but figured that out. And then of course, yeah, on the home front, there's that juggle too. My husband has always been really, really supportive of whatever avenue I have taken at that time. Of course, he misses, and we both miss from time to time now, my corporate paycheck that I had and the benefits more than anything.
Yes. Yes,
But
that's what I missed too, the benefits.
yes, the
Yes.
benefits, you feel like an old person saying that, but it's certainly, it's harder, without the corporate, and the paid time off.
The
Um,
reliable, yes, the reliable paid time off and knowing when your paycheck is coming in too.
Yes, yes. So but we've always kind of juggled the home front together. I'm not the working mother who is going to come home and cook all the meals and do all the grocery shopping and the laundry. Like, part of it was getting our kids to step up when they were
Mhm.
old enough to own more responsibility. And
Mhm.
they joke, I think the age gets lower and lower every time they start talking about when we made them do their own laundry. And then my husband and I, for a while, I wasn't actively caregiving in an extra role. Like, I was a parent when I went back to work initially full time. So it didn't kind of all happen at once. But
Right.
the juggling, when my mom, moved to Atlanta, I'm in the Atlanta area in 2014, and the kids were in middle school, that was heavy. And
Mhm.
honestly, like, looking back, I'm not sure how we didn't frankly keep our head above water. We burned out, and we had to kind of recover through that, which is what has prompted my business and what I do to help other caregivers now.
That is beautiful. So that's a beautiful tie-in to what gets you out of bed in the morning. Like, what is the why of what you do?
Yeah. Well, it's a two purposes, right? So it's
Mhm.
my husband is also an entrepreneur full time. So, it's not just going to happen.
Right,
We've got to, there's the people who wait for things to happen and there's the people who make things happen. And
right.
I would say my husband and I are on the make things happen end of the spectrum.
Mhm,
Like it's,
mhm,
you take time off and there's no paycheck. So it's part of it is the necessity to kind of to live.
mhm.
But luckily we do both enjoy what we're doing. So for me, I didn't know what this business was going to look like 10 years ago. I knew that
Mhm.
I knew that there was a lot of people helping patients
Right.
and doing hands-on thing to help people age in place and be comfortable and senior living and all of that. But there wasn't anybody that was doing anything for the person who was kind of doing all of the juggling and making the calls and the reminders and the
Yes.
research and taking people to appointments. And so that is the family caregiver. And I felt invisible, 10 years ago, and I didn't want other family caregivers to feel invisible. So part of it for me was my why was figuring out how I could recover as a burnout caregiver. And so I kept kind of trying things on, writing about them, talking about them on the
Mhm,
podcast, sharing them with other people on social media,
mhm.
being really curious about what other people were doing so that they could infuse self-care into their lives while they're juggling, you know,
Everything.
everything, so many priorities that never stop kind of, coming
Mhm,
at you like different asteroids.
mhm.
So that's what it really is about is I see this, 53 million family caregivers in the US alone who are invisible. 60% of them are working in addition to caregiving. So it's not abnormal to be a working family caregiver. And I feel like we do have to normalize those
Yeah.
conversations in the workplace and in everywhere to say, like, yeah, this is what I'm doing. Not only the stuff that you see, but behind the scenes, I'm also responsible for this, sometimes multiple individuals.
Yeah.
Um, and it's really hard because it's not only, unlike parenting, where your kids typically are becoming more and more independent, the opposite is happening typically for people when you're caring for them with a long-term chronic disease or condition where they're doing less and less for themselves. And so your plate just kind of keeps overflowing.
Gosh. And that brings me to another question about what what kind of misconceptions do people like what kind of myth do you want to bust about caregivers because
Yes.
we already kind of touched on it by talking about people kind of see something on the outside but there's so
Right.
much balls that you're juggling in the background. What's one myth that you'd like to bust?
Yeah, there are so many. I mean, I think there's a lot of myths. There's that like iceberg thing happening where you're only seeing the tip of the iceberg, and yet there's all of these things that are going on beneath the surface.
Mhm.
Um, and I think another myth is that, you're only really an overwhelmed caregiver if someone is physically living with you. And that's a big myth where no, they could live, across town, states away, assisted living, senior living community, and you still have a role. So
Mhm.
that's, people think, oh, well, doesn't that person live over here? Isn't that okay? And you're like, no, this is, I still have I'm still involved. I still have a role in that. And then I think on the flip side for employers, like thinking that, not asking a working family caregiver to maybe go on the trip or take the promotion or do the project because they're making the assumption that they can't handle it
Mhm.
when we are the only ones that can really really decide. And a lot of times I felt like work was respite for me, like not like the same as a vacation or really time off, but I knew how to do this. I had, I could eat my lunch without having to worry about someone else's eating their lunch. And so in some ways it was a break from that, the caregiving train.
Yes, those are great. Those are great mythbusters. And I definitely think that I always assume, that oh well, we don't want to put too much on, on Elizabeth's plate because she's already doing so much, taking care of this, that, and the other, and this person. So we don't want to put any more burden on it. It's almost like age discrimination when people
Yeah.
see an older person applying for a job and they're just like, oh, they've made a certain level of salary, so they're not going to want this. It's entry level. So they just make assumptions. And so
Right.
instead of assuming
Yeah, let us
employers,
decide.
yeah, employers should just show their ask and let you be the deciding factor, let you have some agency, because that's kind of a big thing when you're taking care of so many people and your life and everything else. The lack of agency is what makes the burnout burn
Mm.
faster, right? Like when you don't feel like you have any control over what's going on.
Yeah, well, you
So
don't really. I mean,
yeah.
I do feel like caregiving also taught me how to learn how to let go a little bit, because when you're
Mm,
taking care of particularly another adult, and I'm still in a caregiving role. My folks are deceased, but my brother, we share the care for him.
mhm.
And, I can't make another person do anything that is a grown adult. And so it can be super frustrating to watch people make bad decisions or poor decisions and to do the opposite.
Mhm.
When it comes to our own life, what we do have control over is how we're going to react, how we're going to respond, where do we want to show up and how we care for ourselves, going back to Mental Health Awareness Month. Like, nobody's going to do it for us. And I knew for me, I wasn't going to find the time for my own self-care. I was going to have to create it and be
Yes.
very intentional about it, or it's not going to happen.
So talk us through that. Like talk us through a typical day of
Yeah.
what that looks like, because a lot of people, I know a lot of people are listening and they're like, how do you make sense of all of this and bring some order to
Yes.
a day? So can you walk us through that?
Yeah, because I'm sure they're listening and are like, "Oh yeah, another person who says you better take care of yourself, or you should,"
Yeah.
shitting on you, I called it,
Yes.
taking care of
Yes.
myself. And honestly, it frustrated me, and I wanted to, kick these people across the room and say, it sounds like one more thing for me to do, like one more thing on my to-do list. And yet, it doesn't get better if you don't do it. So I definitely saw the repercussions of not doing that. My
Mhm.
health was suffering physically. I had acne, I was stressed, I had panic attacks. At one point they pulled an EKG monitor into one of my doctor's appointments. So you know what that looks like. And so you
Mhm.
don't want to, you want to prevent that from happening. And so it does look different when
Yeah.
you are in the throes of caregiving. It looks very different than what life looked like before caregiving and what
Right.
self-care, what used to work then. It's almost like a closet worth of clothes, Joya, where you are in this season of life
Mhm.
and you have a toolbox, or in this case, a closet of clothes of things that you can try on in different situations to see what fits for you, what
Mhm.
makes you feel good, and you keep what does and you donate and scrap what doesn't, because and certain things work in certain seasons. So for me, like, when as a working full-time caregiver, I tried a lot of things on. I was really curious about, oh, this person says aromatherapy really helps them, or the sauna, or yoga, or meditating, or listening to podcasts, or getting
Mhm.
outside and walking, or scheduling lunch dates, talking to a therapist or a grief counselor. So I got really curious about all these little things and
Mhm.
trying them on, and then kept what worked for me, which is going to be different than people listening, what's going to work for them. And
Right.
it has evolved over the years. Like, back when I was, caring for mom and my kids and all of that, I worked out with my husband, certain mornings a week, I was going to get up and get out of the house and have some
Mhm.
time for myself. And I would
Mhm.
go to Starbucks and I would write and I would cry, because journaling was a big part of that. And then
Mhm.
I would go to the gym, and sometimes I wouldn't even work out. I'd just sit in the sauna and take a shower and go to work.
Hey,
Um,
sometimes that's the all you need to do is be still, that
yes.
refills the cup. Mhm.
Yeah, or and listen to tunes in the car, or
Mhm.
and then taking my kids to their sporting events and practices after work. Sometimes it would be sitting and chatting with the other moms for that kind of like feeling like a normal person. And
Mhm.
sometimes it would be, no, I need to go for a walk around the track, or I need to, go write or
Mhm.
work on something else. So it would vary, and it was a lot of kind of stopping and checking in and saying, okay, what do I need today? Do I need the
Mhm.
workout today, or is it be better for me to sleep in? Like,
Yes.
listening to my body and reacting accordingly. Nature has been super healing for me. So,
Mhm.
I journaling was a big deal when I was early on in caregiving, to the point where I even wrote a journal called the Just for You Daily Self-Care Journal. It was written
Nice.
with caregivers in mind, but it's a prompted journal that helps people prioritize their self-care. So I wanted other people to try that on.
Nice.
Um, but getting outside is my go-to even today. Like after this, I'm going to take my dog. We're going to get out in the sunshine for even 15 minutes. And I
Yes.
feel like I kind of feel like those Pac-Man ghosts or Pac-Man, when you just like you chomp the special thing and it makes you like energized and hyped up.
Yes.
So it works for me that way. I just feel energized when I get back.
That's fantastic. So you need to work with what works for you. And I think that you said it. You took a pause for the cause and you said, what do I need right now? And I talk about that in my book too, is what do I need right now so that you can self-regulate. You're
Mm,
aware that things are kind of not right. You're listening to your body and you're asking yourself, that's real, that's self-management, is what do I need right now? And sometimes you just don't want to move. You get to the gym. Hey, that is check that box off. I made it to the gym, but what does my body need right now? Sometimes it needs stillness. Sometimes it needs vitamin D. It's just about asking what you need right now. I
yeah.
literally, before we started taping this episode, my husband came in and was just like, what time is your podcast? And I was just like, it's 1 o'clock and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, have you eaten yet? Have you had anything to drink? I was just like, and I was really salty and angry. And he was just like, you haven't eaten anything, have you? I was hangry. And
Yeah.
he was just like, you need to go downstairs. If you know what's good for you, you can't put Elizabeth through this. You need to go and get yourself something to eat.
Yeah. Well, we
Yeah.
need those self-care cheerleaders or bullies, depending on how you look at them. But I mean, our partners and our spouses, they
Yes.
know us better than anyone. So I
Mhm.
know my husband knows. And sometimes I put myself in a timeout. Like we got back from a trip yesterday and I was kind of really cranky because some of the stuff got put in a different car and, again, out of my control. And I was like, I just need to go upstairs. I just need a minute, like to myself.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
I will say that sometimes, or sometimes I'll say, I don't even want to be in my own skin right now. And they're like, oh, back up. She needs a
Whoa.
minute. Yeah. Yeah.
It's bad when you're like, I just don't even want to be around anyone. Just go away. Everyone needs to go away. I need to pull
Yeah.
myself away from everyone.
And the
Uh,
boundaries are important. Like, I mean,
yes.
even I remember, even as a working caregiver, another kind of practical self-care tip is like when the kids got old enough to do more for themselves and really manage their schoolwork and so forth, I would tell them, like, mom's off duty at 9 o'clock. If you need papers, you need my help with something, you
Mhm.
need that, like, I need it before 9 o'clock.
Mm.
And, I don't want to be in my bed trying to wind down for the day. And it's like, mom, can you sign this? And can I, oh, darn it, I needed you to get such and such out of the house, or no. So like anything that kind of starts to bubble up and
Yeah.
feel like it's irking us in some way is really an opportunity to check and be like, why is this so annoying? How can I put a boundary or something in place
Yeah.
so that we can prevent this from happening again?
Amen to all of that. So you can be proactive, and boundaries are so important. I talk about it 1,000 times. I know the audience is like tired of hearing me talk about it. So it's good that you're coming in and talking about it too. It's so important to create those boundaries so that you can maintain your sanity
Yeah.
and really again have that mental wellness and health, to keep things afloat. And what would be, I mean, these are all great tips, but what would be some tips that you would give? What would be some career advice that you would give to the younger
Yeah.
Elizabeth?
I mean, to the younger one, I think, don't think you could do it all yourself. We all need support. It's not wimpy to ask for support. It's actually the opposite. It's a very courageous, brave thing to do, to say like, hey, I know that this is not a strength that I have, or I know I need to talk this through with somebody. So seeking out that support, whether it's in your career or whether it's in caregiving, I find that a lot of times people wait until the hair's on fire and they're in crisis mode before they're coming to like a caregiver coach or career coach. And it's
Mhm.
like, what if you kind of just initiated it a little bit sooner?
Mhm.
And you could avoid some of the pitfalls and learn about how to get there, maybe, a little less painful. That it's still going to be hard work, but it's
Mhm.
going to be a little less painful because so much is easier when you have the community support. And there's an amazing, caregiving community for sure I can speak to out there that I felt like all alone, back in 2014, but has changed in a lot of ways. It's still pretty fragmented. You got to kind of know where to look for it.
Mhm.
And I think that's where the people like you and I can help
Yes.
fast track people to the different resources so that it's not one more thing on their plate to kind of figure it out on their own.
Do you have any resources that you'd like to share with our listeners and our audience
Yeah,
of
amazing.
how they can grow their and we need to definitely have a link to the journal too.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, I'll do
that.
that. I mean, how I make a living primarily now, Joyelle, is through professional speaking and
Mhm,
through partner collaborations with people.
mhm,
So I always wanted someone else to pay me so that I could do the things to support family caregivers, but love to come speak to someone's company or so forth about
mm,
that. But
mhm,
how I can support individuals with who are working family caregivers or family caregivers out there is certainly the podcast. So Happy
mhm,
Healthy Caregiver podcast is I interview real family caregivers that are sharing their self-care strategies and their tips.
mhm.
You can find a lot of resources on happyhealthycaregiver.com. And
Nice.
hopefully, if it's your first time visiting, you'll get a pop-up to join the newsletter, which the newsletter comes out every Tuesday. And I share something happy, something healthy, and something care related. So would love
Nice.
for you all to tap into that.
Fantastic. Well, I feel happy and healthier
Oh,
by listening
good.
to you.
Woo.
I really know. I just love all of this, and the timing could not have been any better. I'm just kind of grateful that the stars aligned that we could get you on earlier. For everyone else, we're just BTS behind the scenes. She was originally supposed to be, you were supposed to be in November, and something opened up. And so we had you on earlier. And I think now more than ever, people just need to know how to take care of themselves as they're taking care of others. And these are some great resources. And I'm hoping that we can bring more people to your door, as
Thank
well
you.
as to other organizations and corporations who are working hard for the health and well-being of their employees. It's such a huge investment. That's a benefit,
The benefit.
because when you have happy, healthy employees, you lower turnover, you increase retention. You know what I mean? If you're not so focused on, like you said, you had a respite with working. If they
Yeah.
understood that, just even having an open ear to that, I think more organizations should have you come in and talk
Yeah.
about that, the
I'm
benefits of all of that.
I'm enjoying and I'm liking how a lot of organizations are starting to create employee resource groups and
Yes.
affinity groups
Mhm,
specifically for parents and caregivers. So I work with a
mhm,
lot of those. Yeah, and I feel like there are a lot of underutilized resources like
mhm,
employee assistance program and flex time and all of
mhm.
that. All of those benefits matter, but it is a win-win-win for everybody. Because when you have a happy, healthy caregiver, it's like the work's going to be better, home life's going to be better,
Mhm.
our community environment, all of it, it really has a ripple effect.
Indeed, indeed. Well, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence
Thanks for having me.
and all the tips and tools and everything else. And I'm really grateful that we were able to get you on sooner. Everyone, if you need to know anything else about Happy Healthy Caregiver, it's going to all be in the show notes. It's going to be everywhere we can plaster it up. And if you really liked this episode, please like and subscribe. I'm going to say it all the time. I say it in the beginning, I say it at the end, but also follow Elizabeth on her journey. She's also available on LinkedIn, and connect with her. If you liked what you heard, make sure don't be shy. If you liked what you heard, reach out to her. She's available and she's responsive. So make sure that you reach out and subscribe to her newsletter. All the things. And thank you all for joining us on Career View Mirror. And we'll see you next time. Thank you so much for listening to Career View Mirror. If you got value from this episode, please consider leaving a rating and a review for the show on Apple Podcasts, or head on over to Spotify and click 5 stars for our show. We also have a YouTube channel with video versions of our episodes, so subscribe over there for more content. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next episode.